Morning, everybody. My name's Jes Breslaw, as explained. So Delphix is a company, Silicon Valley company, about 9 years old, $100 million company. We have offices around Europe. And I'm going to talk about data to you guys today. It's going to lead on really nicely from the presentations that you've had today so far, because it really fuels all of the things that we've talked about, the guys have talked about so far. I have a bit of losing my voice today, a bit like our Prime Minister Theresa May recently. I'm hoping I'll be a bit more popular with this audience today, but bear with me, and if I start going, just kind of listen carefully. I'm not an expert in health. I'm going to talk a bit about some of the aspects of it. Delphix works across industries, some of the biggest companies in the world in retail, finance, as well as healthcare and manufacturing and so on use Delphix. But it's a really interesting story, and I think if I ask for one thing at the end of this, is that you go away thinking about what the potential is when you look at data in a very different way than you've looked at it before. So there's a lot of data around, we know that much, we hear it all the time, but how much data are we talking about? And there's some pretty amazing numbers on here. So a zettabyte is 1 billion terabytes, right? So last year, most analysts agree we broke the zettabyte stage in global data. But healthcare, IDC forecast, just within the healthcare sector, we're going to have 2.3 zettabytes of data, 2.3 billion terabytes of data by 2020. That's just an astonishing number, right? And it's even leading on now to analysts and futurists predicting, and a word I've never even heard of is a yottabyte, 1 trillion terabytes. So if you only remember one thing today, you've learned a new number, a yottabyte. It's pretty incredible numbers. But this data is just causing businesses huge amounts of challenges, how to handle that data and what to do with it. I pulled this from a Deloitte white paper, and I think it really brings into the forefront of what we're talking about, the issues in the healthcare industry. Data's coming from a lot of new things. We've heard today, things like digital pills, things like new initiatives like electronic health records, all of these new technologies and IoT and everything just generating more and more data that's going to pervasively go across our businesses and make us think about how we're going to handle that data. And at the same time, there's a pull of data. There's new expectations from consumers in how data is used to give them a better service, predicting better outcomes, post-operation, what can be done. And earlier we talked about some of the kind of virtual nurses that could be done. So data is coming from all of these sources and generating a huge pool of opportunity. But the question is how you handle that opportunity. There's a bunch of IT challenges. Again, many of them we've discussed today, and there's some of them here. So this kind of digital healthcare that's generating all this data is the disruption that's going on within the industry is one huge challenge for IT people. But at the same time, regulatory requirements is also pushing directly against that. As fast as you want to go developing new things, regulations is always there to kind of control and make sure things are done in a correct and proper way. And that often has an opposite effect. We've got data breaches happening in hospitals and healthcare and in every industry today. So sensitive data is a huge concern for everyone. And even before I came on this morning in the breakfast, I had a couple of conversations around GDPR, which is, of course, coming in May the 25th, and really, really driving people to think, how can I protect my data? We're looking always to operate more efficiently, to make things more streamlined and quicker and automated. And also, there's a huge number of people within healthcare. How do we manage those people? How do we get the most out of them? And at the same time as doing all of these things, we're always under the same pressure to reduce cost out of our business. So there's many, many themes that go against each other in what we do. How do we balance the need to go faster and be more agile, but control risk, control cost, and manage the people and processes that happen in our businesses? So in Delphix, we see things from 2 points of view. The first thing is the data consumer. These are the developers, the testers, the data scientists, machine learning and AI algorithms and applications that use data. All these data consumers, they have a real set of demands. They want to make data-driven decisions. They want to make really much better decisions based on the data they've got available to them. They want to do it much faster. It's why we're here today. DevOps and initiatives and Agile methodologies, all looking to go faster and get these people to make decisions faster. They want that data much faster than they had it before. and new architectures like cloud, meaning that data is spread in more places. We have to manage data in more places, but the consumers want that data there. They want data to be in the cloud. They want data to be in more places geographically and across technologies. On the other side of the coin, we have the data operators, the DBAs, the storage guys, the infrastructure guys, the security guys. All these people have a completely opposite set of challenges. They have to make sure the data is safe and secure. They've got to make sure there's processes in place that can be followed for delivering and supplying data. They have to have governance and risk to make sure that data is protected and secured, and that the right people have the right access to the right data. And also, they've got sprawling data sets going across all over organizations. How do they manage that and control that? And when you've got these two opposing teams of people when it comes to data, it causes something that we call data friction. Sound familiar? A bit like DevOps, right? DevOps has friction between the developers and the operational side of the business. And in this context, we have friction between the consumers and the operators of data. And this really inhibits our agility to get things done in this world of incredible data that's coming into the industry, and really inhibits the innovation that we want to put in. So if we accept that data is a really key asset within healthcare, we have to find a way of handling data better. We have to unlock data to enable us to do innovation faster, to do it in a secure way, and to be able to do it everywhere. And guess what? We have a solution for that, and I'm going to tell you a bit about that. But before I do, I want to talk about data ops. So data ops, you can Google it when you go home tonight or over the next couple of weeks. Data ops is a methodology that lots of companies are starting to talk about. And it fits very nicely into things like DevOps and other methodologies. So this is Gartner's definition. There's many, like DevOps, everyone has a different definition for what it is. My personal opinion is people, processes, and tools enabled to remove that friction between the data operators and the data consumers. If we can unlock that, we can do a lot more with our businesses and our applications and what we do. So what if there was a better way? What if developers and testers and data scientists can have data in minutes whenever they want it? And what if they weren't slowed down by manual processes? They can have it whenever they want, and they can do it themselves, and they don't have to wait. What if every developer and tester could have their own environment because they're no longer sharing a set of data between a shared environment? Those restrictions and constraints were gone. What if you could have production-like test data when you do your development and testing? But you could do that without the regulatory risks that come with that, about having sensitive data in those environments. And on the operator side, what if the DBAs and the infrastructure side can deliver that data in minutes? So instead of inhibiting agility and innovation, they're enabling it. Suddenly they're on the same team. They're making things happen at the speed that you guys want it to happen to. And what if they can manage hundreds and hundreds of copies of that data with full transparency and visibility? What if you could completely remove the cost associated with supplying data? And what if you could protect that data at scale and make sure that compliance and regulation fits in really nicely with that? And what if you could do that across all environments, on-premise, cloud, or hybrid? This is the utopia of data delivery, and really is what we're here to talk about. So this is a new approach to data. Data ops is looking at things differently. It's saying we're not going to do things in the same old way. And really, data delivery is one of the last parts of the DevOps toolchain that hasn't really been solved until now. And I'm going to explain how we do it. But if you can make it portable, accessible, and secure, then suddenly it fits into that automation piece. It fits into your workflows and really can fuel everything that you do. Right, so this is where I'm going to tell you how it works, and by the end of it, you'll see light bulbs going on all over the room, I hope. So with Delphix, what we do is we deliver data to the people that want it, when they want it, in a secure fashion. We do it fast, we do it via self-service, and we do it across infrastructures. Really simply, how it works is it's a piece of software, you install it, and it connects to your data sources, whatever data sources they may be. Flat files, relational databases, We're building support for unstructured databases, configuration files. We connect with that, and we take a single one-time copy of that data. From then on, we take incremental changes. So every change that happens in that data source now gets replicated into our engine. So we've now got this near live version of your data. We then compress that data to about a third. We virtualize at the data block level. So now we've got this. Now we can deliver virtualized copies with no storage footprint to people that want it downstream. But before we do that, and bearing in mind we're still within your data center here, data has not left the secure boundaries of your data center. What we can do now is we can secure that data. So we have a data masking tool as part of what we do. A profiler will go out and analyze data fields and the actual data within it and say, do you know what? That looks like a credit card number, or that looks like a birth date, or that looks like a national insurance health number. And we have algorithms in the box that will then you could use to transport and convert that to a different format, or you can customize those, or you can build your own. But the point is, you build your policy, your data masking policy, that then gets applied consistently through all of your data sources. If I've got an Oracle database over here and a Sybase database over there, and I've got Jes that exists in both of those databases, it's intelligent enough to convert both those fields with this common name to the same value. So when you're doing integration testing, it's going to be really, really good quality data. We then manage that data. So now that data is secure, we can now deliver that downstream as virtual copies of that data. So now we can release many, many copies to many, many people, but have full control and transparency how we do that. The way Delphix has been coded is that anything that's available through self-service and through our command line interfaces is also available through APIs. So that opens up all of the DevOps tools that you use today that you can then call Delphix. And there's an absolutely fab demo on our website using a full DevOps toolchain using DataCal, Jenkins, GitHub, Celerium, Maven. Really, really, really good video. I really would recommend you go and have a look at it. And it takes you through a kind of day in the life of a tester using all of these tools together. It's just a really, really great video. So that's all that fits into the DevOps toolchain. We can use the APIs and do it. But the really great bit is we can now create something called a data pod. A data pod is a collection of virtualized databases delivered to someone downstream, be that a tester, a developer, an analyst, or whoever. Could be a collection of copies of data that they now have control and features to use on their own. And I'll explain what some of those are in a sec. So the data operators now have a whole great set of functionality. They can secure data. They can virtualize and compress it, saving storage. They can create automation. Every day, I want all of my testers to have a fresh copy of the data when they come into the office. You can replicate it between sites, and you can view and manage those environments wherever they happen to be. The consumers have a bunch of funky tools, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. They can bookmark data. They can version control data, just like you version code. You can refresh, rewind, reset data at will. You could branch data just in the same way that you branch code as well. And you can share copies of data between teams, just like you'd share a news story on Facebook. What's the benefit of this within our context of healthcare? Well, suddenly I can accelerate pretty much any application project I do. On average, most application projects that use dynamic data platforms are done in half the time that they were before. Absolutely astonishing. And you think about the days, weeks, months it takes to deliver refreshed data and secure that data. And if that's done in minutes, it's pretty easy to see how those kind of time savings can happen. If you imagine now that this team over here is now not waiting for the environment to be freed up to do an application project because you've only got one shared environment in UAT, you can see how this could be beneficial because they can now work in parallel. So it really speeds up. Also security. Now I can create my policy once and deliver secure data across my organization whenever I want it. So when it comes to GDPR, come May the 25th, you're doing exactly what GDPR mandates. You're building security into your business processes. When I deliver data, de facto, it gets secured and protected before it gets there. And it enables the cloud. And I've got a really cool use case, which I know you're going to really like, that explains how this works. So as I said, here I am. Here's my production databases over here. In my data center, on-premise, I've got my Delphix engine. I've connected to the data. I've collected that together, and I've secured that data, still within my data center. I now have another piece of Delphix software in the cloud, and I replicate just the sensitive, not the sensitive data. I now replicate just the mask data into the cloud. My cloud never touches the data on-premise. I only see the anonymized data in the cloud. It never accesses that production data. And once I'm now in the cloud, I can now deliver those data pods to all the developers and testers that want access to that data without any additional storage footprint. And when you think of the amount of money it costs within the cloud for data, you can start to see how much this benefits. But it gets much, much better than that. Now I've got the data in the cloud. What happens today without platforms like this when I need to refresh that data? I have to go back to my on-premise and get an entire new copy of production data. I have to mask that entire copy again and deliver that copy into the cloud, often in big companies in a lorry and a hard disk that goes there. Well, because we're tracking incremental changes, we only have to refresh the changes into the cloud. So no longer do we have to go and do full refreshes from production on-premise into the cloud. We can refresh a cloud instance of data in 6 or 7 minutes, terabytes in size, fully secured, fully delivered. You can version control data just like code. So you have the ability to bookmark that data at a point in time and then go and work on a different bug, a different feature on that same application, even within a single environment. So a developer or tester could have several copies of data from several different points that they want to work with. And finally, the final icing on the cake is that because we track incremental changes, we're a time machine as well. So not only can you have that data instantly, fully secure, but you can have it from any point in time. So if you get a bug, a really great use case of Delphix is if you have a bug from Wednesday last week at 3:30 p.m., you can rewind the data to that second before that bug happened, spin up that data from that moment in time, triage the data, and fix the bug. And you can even then copy the virtual copy of the database back to production, a virtual to physical copy. So we're often used in production support environments as well. It's a lot to take in. It's one of those things that you walk away and you start to think of different applications and different requirements within your business where this could have a transformative difference in what you do. I've mentioned development and testing as clearly an obvious use case for us. Cloud, data center and cloud migrations and security and compliance. We have a couple of other use cases which weirdly lost their logo, which is kind of interesting in a data recovery one, but hey. So analytics and reporting, so you have lots of applications doing reporting, financial reporting, compliance reporting. At the moment, they're running either off production or off old versions of data. Imagine if you could run those financial reports off data that's only a few minutes old from whenever you need it. So you have a completely standalone copy of that data. And for data protection and recovery as well, as I explained, you can roll back instantly and get that access to that data really, really quickly. So we have some healthcare examples. We're particularly big in healthcare in the States. We have most of the large hospitals and most of the large health insurances. We're starting to have opportunities in Europe as we grow and expand. But some interesting use cases. So Diplomat, they have a patient care app that they use to develop, a mobile app. They use Delphix to do that and to accelerate the time to market for that. And that was a really interesting use case. Celgene, they use it for their ERP system to manage all their employees. It's an Oracle EBS application. And they use that, and they also mask that data because of the sensitive HR context of that data. Pfizer have a word I can't actually pronounce, but this is a security, a regulatory reporting application they use it for, that last use case I just talked about. So have a go, pharmacovigilance, there we go, can say it. Redor use us for DevOps, then also they're currently just using us to do a AWS migration into the cloud. That's currently being installed at the moment. And EBI is a really interesting company. They're the European Bioinformatics Institute. They collect all the genome data from around the world, petabytes of data. It's just unbelievable how much data these guys have. And they then deliver that over to research institutes and universities and data scientists. Their data is just too big for Delphix to handle. We don't handle petabytes of data in the way they want us to use. But they have databases of metadata, data about their data, and they use that. They have product managers for data sets, and they use Delphix to crunch and analyze that data and be able to use that. So it's a really interesting range of use cases. One of our biggest challenges is that everyone doesn't do the same thing with Delphix. It would be really handy if they did. But it just shows you the kind of agility that we have. So if we think back to the beginning of the presentation, I talked about the explosion of data, particularly in healthcare, what's driving that data explosion, all the digital health applications and devices that are coming along, IoT, and also at the other side, we talked about the expectations of the consumer, how aftercare and data is feeding that kind of end-to-end service. Well, that has a number of impacts, and Delphix really helps with that. So we increase the speed at which you can deliver these things to market by up to 50%. We're much more flexible and agile. We can fail fast, we can do things, we can play and innovate much more in a flexible way than we could before. The data operators don't have to worry anymore about infrastructure constraints. You don't have to worry about the people process constraints anymore. You're just allowed to go ahead and do it without that constraint and concern. Security compliance is now no longer an issue. If all of your test data is anonymized and masked in an intelligent, efficient way, it's not even relevant to GDPR anymore because there is no sensitive data there and the data can't be traced backwards. It's a one-way anonymization. You can enable the cloud far quicker and agile than you could before. And you can get to there and use and leverage those techniques. And it's far more collaborative. Now I can move and play with data between teams, between infrastructure operations and the consumers, but also between test and QA and dev. It's a far more productive and collaborative way to use data, and it opens up the way that you work. And actually really does fundamentally change some of your business processes within your DevOps methodologies. You can do things before that you just couldn't do without this kind of stuff. And by the way, we never talk about storage really, but we do remove about 90% of your storage costs in non-production. So typically that pays for the stuff, but the real benefit isn't the storage savings. The real benefit is the agility and the change management that you can now do so much faster. We love to come along and see you guys and whiteboard it. This isn't something that we come along and talk to you about. This is something that you get your architects, your development, your test, your QA, your developers, your compliance guys in a room, and they have a good old fight over how data's managed until we all come to a conclusion that's going to be best for your business. But even just as a general science experiment, it's a really interesting exercise to do, and I'd recommend anyone to kind of do that. I hope that was useful. I think my voice just about lasted. I've got a minute for any questions, otherwise we're just in the lobby afterwards. Thank you very much.